Hello, my brothers and sisters. It's Saturday, the 18th of March, and I'm going to share part 2 of the Water Chronicles. I've had a number of emails from people sharing their own dreams and visions that have been given over the years of flooding coming to the Western Cape of South Africa and in many other nations as well. And I want to start with Luke 21:25. It says, "There will be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking at those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven will be shaken." Now, in the transcript of this message, I'm sharing a link for a video compilation of some of the flood and tsunami warnings that have been received worldwide. And I'm also sharing a link for a video interview given in August 2021 with John Moore, who shares the warnings given in classified briefings to the US Navy veterans. You can hear this part of the interview from the 20-minute mark. And I will share some details of what John Moore said later in this message. And now in part 2 of the Water Chronicles, I want to continue to share confirming dreams and visions about the first and second wave of water in South Africa. The Lord has already confirmed that the first wave inundating the west coast will be as a result of an asteroid plunging into the sea in the area close to the Gulf of Mexico. The second wave of water, which is far more devastating, is caused by something else entirely. And I want to reshare a post from 2020 in which I shared a vision about an incoming planet whose gravitational field causes havoc upon the Earth. This message was received on the 23rd of July, 2020, and I do have a link to the post on my website in the transcript. In that message I said this, and I am now going to quote from the message. "I personally had not been shown anything by the Lord about what is happening in space until this week, when, as usual, the Father began an interesting conversation with me. I never know what is coming when he says, 'Come. Come, daughter, we want to show you something.' Oh, Lord, that's exciting. In a way." This disturbed me a bit because it didn't sound like it was going to be a pleasant experience. "Is it scary?" I asked. "Well, it depends which vantage point you look from," he said. And in a vision, I was suddenly in outer space, and there was a reddish-brown, large planet to the left of me, with a distinct blue glow on its external surface. I could see stars twinkling in the darkness around it, and to my right, but further away and looking much smaller, was the Earth, suspended like a blue marble. The big planet was moving forward with speed in the direction of the Earth, and I was moving with it. "Is it going to hit, Lord?" I asked. "No, but the debris from the field will." And as the planet got closer to Earth, I saw the globe begin to shake slightly, and then more violently. The surface of the Earth began to crack open, like hard ground does when one pulls up the roots of a plant. I saw earthquakes taking place all over the globe and volcanoes going off. The Earth was shaking violently from the effect of the gravitational pull of the approaching planet. And then I saw a big padlock buried deep, breaking open under the influence of the shaking, and chains began to fall down, and I saw giant beings released from the places where they had been imprisoned, and they were climbing out of them. I also saw very strong winds blowing across the surface of the whole Earth, and for a brief moment I was zoomed in and saw people clinging to lampposts and trees to try and anchor themselves in the gale force winds. Then I heard a phrase, "solar winds," and I had no idea what this meant. I asked the Father, "How long will it take to pass by?" a few days, he said. And then I remembered the research by Gil Broussard, who calculated that it would take 3 days for a planet called Nibiru, or Planet X, to cross the Earth's orbit. And because of this, there would be darkness upon the Earth for that period, because it would pass between the Earth and the Sun. I also remembered that he put forward the 2 times of it crossing Earth's orbit would be sometime near the feasts of Passover and the fall feasts, with a 5-month period in between. I do not know at the time if I am seeing what he spoke of, or if this is another incoming planetary body. So I began to pray, Lord, help us, shelter us. From what vantage point is this not scary? From my throne, daughter, am I not the one who commands the waves of the sea to rise? And am I not the one who launches the planets in their orbits? Do I not know each star by name? And is this not my destroyer, released to deliver my people from the yoke of Egypt? And as he said this, I saw the destroyer passing over ancient Egypt and the Israelites leaving their slavery and crossing the Red Sea. I delight to provide for them, he continued, to protect them and lead them. But how can I do this unless the yoke of wicked men is dealt with? How can I set them apart for myself and dwell in their midst while they still wear the slave yoke to the systems of this world? But Lord, I answered, we still have to live in this world for a season. I had hardly finished my sentence before parts of a very well-known scripture were spoken in my hearing. The words vibrated there in the atmosphere, imparting faith and courage to me. Matthew 6:31. Take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For your heavenly Father knows that you have need of all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Then he spoke again. Yes, daughter, David's household fled from the murderous plots of Absalom, and arrived exhausted at the Jordan. And did I not refresh them by the hand of my servant? And did they not come to Mahanaim and find a banquet already prepared? Do not underestimate my ability to plan ahead, daughter. I know my faithful children's needs. Yes, the destroyer comes, and a great cry shall arise in Egypt. He refers to the world systems here, as it passes by, and wreaks havoc with their plans and dynasties. But you, my people, make use of my blood and shelter in the shadow of my wings. It is the reward of the wicked that the planet comes to execute. They think to hide deep their plots and plans, but he who made the ear, can he not hear their diabolical whisperings? And can he not see the shelters they build deep in the earth? There is no place they can hide from me. Be at peace, my daughter. My angels already have their orders to bring my veiled ones to safety before judgment strikes. What you need now is extreme focus, not alarmism, but purposeful focus. It's time to pass through the eye of a needle now, and wait until you see what awaits you on the other side. As he says this, I see a camel kneeling down outside a gate in the wall of Jerusalem, and all the baggage being unloaded from it so that it can fit through the small gate. I realize he is speaking of getting rid of weights and cares and issues and belongings that we are dragging with us. I also see a woman sitting at a window trying to thread a needle. The room where she is sitting is dimly lit, and she is using a shaft of sunlight coming through the window to see clearly. She is intensely focused and keeping her eyes on the small portal that the thread must pass through. The Spirit is saying that as the light in the world gets ever dimmer, while the dark night of trial sets in, we must focus and use the light and revelation of the Son, Jesus, in order to accomplish what we need to do. And that's where the quote from that post ends. Do you remember in my dream witnessing the flood of water in the Western Cape? I was in the middle of moving house, and returned to get what I referred to as my camping things. I believe this is a reference to the Israelites leaving Egypt and going into the wilderness, where they dwelt in tents as they followed the cloud. Perhaps it also refers to the importance of people possessing some kind of temporary portable housing like a tent for the difficult days ahead, if displacement should occur. Then on the 2nd of August 2020, I dreamt I was driving with a friend whose name means valor and bravery, and we saw a huge planet at horizon level in pastel colors, and later when we circled back to photograph it, it looked almost white in color. After this dream, the Father led me to an interview done on the 13th of August 2018 originally, which gave me quite a bit of information that filled in the gaps in my understanding about the planet I had seen. So I'm going to give you some quotes from that interview. There is a large planet-sized mass which inhabits our solar system, and its large elliptical orbit around the Sun brings it across Earth's orbital plane every 3,600 years or so, and it wreaks havoc on our planet due to strong gravity effects. The US government has been aware of the approach of this Planet X for over 40 years, says John Moore, who is known as the Liberty Man. In the interview he did on Brighton Conversations, he shared that while Planet X won't strike the Earth, its nearby approach will unleash cataclysmic consequences across our planet, which may include a global pole shift, which means the Earth crust slips to a new orientation, and this unleashes extreme winds, volcanoes, earthquakes, flooding, and tidal waves. John Moore is a former US Army intelligence analyst, and he has developed a long list of sources inside the government and the US military. You can find the information he gives out at thelibertyman.com. As Moore explained, the pole shift would place North America closer to the equator than its current position, and the bulge of ocean water at the equator, which is due to the centrifugal forces of the rotating planet, would raise the level of the ocean by hundreds of feet when it is displaced. John Moore's website, libertyman.com, hosts a map of the anticipated changes in sea level and country boundaries. Much of Florida and the eastern seaboard are underwater in this depiction. He explained how people living in other areas of the world can easily determine whether their current locations will be inundated with ocean levels. The Planet X flyby would likely also bring asteroid impacts, causing global chaos and mass destruction as large space rocks impact the planet at extreme relative velocities. Now, if you read in Revelation 8, it speaks about a mountain blazing with fire striking the sea, and then it also speaks about a planet called Wormwood, which poisons water and the rivers. The United States government is fully aware of the approach of Planet X, but has chosen to withhold this information from the American people, for the simple fact that there's nothing the masses can do to survive the anticipated events. Moore recommends people move inland and get above 500 feet in elevation in order to survive the ocean inundation of North America. And obviously this would apply to South Africa as well. 500 to 600 feet above sea level would be safe, he recommends, and 500 feet is 150 meters. 600 feet is 180 meters above sea level. And I do put a link for the full interview. As far as the timing of the return of Planet X, John Moore said that people who keep asking about the timing are those who refuse to prepare. And he says the following events will be triggered by this giant planet's passing. The sea will rise continuously during a 30-day period. There will be between a 12 and 72-hour period when magnetic and true north come together again, disrupting the 500-foot bulge of water normally at the equator. And this is caused by the gravitational pull of this planet. There will be 200-mile-per-hour winds for a day, and earthquakes and asteroids striking. There will be a phenomenon which happens during solar eclipse cessation, when the navigational systems dependent on magnetic compasses stop working, and this would affect aircraft. Needless to say, in this scenario, Bitcoin would be useless, as would all fiat currencies. The only things that would have value from that day forward are gold, silver, firearms, ammunition, food, fuel, first aid, land, and other real items that you have used your fiat currencies to purchase. The book of Revelation, as I've said, openly warns humanity about a fiery mountain falling out of the sky and impacting the ocean, devastating the planet and destroying a third of the world's ships. So from the things I personally have been shown, it seems that the displacement of the bulge of water at the equator by Planet X's gravitational pull is what will cause massive coastal flooding worldwide, and the second incoming wave, which I was shown in my 2016 dream, where portions of the Western Cape and Cape Town in particular were completely underwater. This is not a tsunami. A tsunami rises up high and comes crashing down with great velocity. This, on the other hand, is just a continual increase in sea level, fairly speedily, until the water has encroached far inland, depending on the terrain. On the 13th of August 2020, I had yet another flood warning dream. I dreamt it was early morning, and I was in an apartment upstairs, and leaned out of the window and saw that it was early dawn, and the workers were standing together talking downstairs in the garden. By mistake, I knocked something out the window and asked them to put it on the concrete bench, and I would come and fetch it. I also saw my metal wall hanging of a bird cage with an uncaged bird on top, already outside on the bench. Then I closed the curtains on the other side of the lounge to stop the partying people on that balcony looking in, and I walked to open the front door to look out. Strangely, I noticed it was night time on the side of the apartment where the party was going on, and the figures partying were quite dim. As I stood at the front door, I turned back and saw water flowing into the apartment until the floor was about 20 centimeters underwater, a bit more than ankle deep. This was an upstairs apartment. I didn't know whether to close the door to stop more coming in, but then I saw the door didn't seal properly, so I left it open for the water to flow out again. And I said to my husband, we should have moved higher. Then I woke from this dream with the verse, when the flood waters overflow, they will not reach the spirit in me. And I again asked the Lord why he had given me this dream, and he said, I am showing you the first wave. It will flow in and flow out. The second wave will remain upon the earth for 40 days. It will come early in the first watch of the night, when people are sleeping. Is the second wave connected to the pole shift and Planet X? I asked. Yes, daughter. Lord, what time in the morning did I knock something out of the window? 7:30 a.m. So that's about halfway through the first watch of the morning. In the dream, on the balcony on one side, as I mentioned, it looked like it was nighttime. But on the other side it was early morning, and workers were ready to get to appointed tasks. This aligns with what I've been shown before, that the remnant have been moving through a night of preparation, and that the dawn is at hand for them, and a new day, when they will do exploits for the Lord. but the world and those reveling in its ways are going into deeper and deeper darkness and a night of trial. This is why the partygoers were in the darkness, but outside the other window the workers were ready to do their tasks assigned for the day of the Lord. The uncaged bird and the birdcage have always reminded me of being set free from a time of being shut in. Perhaps it is a sign of being released from the stall, which is mentioned in Malachi 4, when we will tread down the wicked. But what does the closing of curtains in the dream entail? Is it a shutting down of my website and other social media communications so that the world cannot see what we are doing inside the apartment? Or does it symbolize a severing and separating between the world and the remnant? I think it must be this, because I'm sensing that at the time of ancient exodus from Egypt, the people went into their houses with the blood on the doorposts and stayed in there feasting on the lamb just before they were to come out of the world system. Then on the 14th of August 2020, I said, Lord, tell me more about the second wave I saw in my first flood dream. And I was shown a planet close to Earth, and as it approached, I noticed an asteroid falling, which caused the first wave. The planet crossed the Earth's path after Passover, and as it left, a massive flood of water rose in my vision. John Moore explained that this is caused by the bulge of water being shifted from the equator. The ankle wave in my dream of the day before is the warning wave, the Lord said, and I remember the Lord did tell me that there will be no warning for the second rising of water. The sea level would just continue to rise. I had a question burning in my heart. Lord, when I had the dream where I saw the planet looking massive in the sky in the morning, when is that going to occur? When will I see that? And he answered, 3 days before Passover, but he did not tell me which year. That's very interesting, because Planet X is sometimes referred to as the destroyer, because at other times in history when it has passed by, it has caused havoc. And astronomers know that the destroyer passed over Egypt at the first Passover. Ephraim Rodriguez, the pastor who had the vision of the asteroid hitting the Gulf of Mexico, said that it would stop the Earth's rotation for 3 days so that the Western Hemisphere would have 3 days of darkness. I wondered what we in South Africa would have, because we're 7 hours ahead of the Gulf of Mexico. We're almost in between the Western and the Eastern Hemisphere. It also seems there may be more than one period of darkness coming to this Earth, as if the asteroid going into the Gulf of Mexico stops the rotation of the Earth for 3 days, that will cause darkness in areas. But when Planet X blocks out the sun at a later period, it takes 3 days to pass by the Earth, so that would also cause darkness. So do take this to prayer, beloved. I also had another confirming dream round about 2021. I did not record the date of it, but this comes back to me often. I was in the back seat of a car in the dream. My brother-in-law was driving and my sister was in the front passenger seat. And we were going down the main road to the Strand, which is the neighbouring town to where I live on the coast of False Bay in the Western Cape. And suddenly, in between the buildings that are close to the beach, which are quite high-rise blocks of flats because it is a beach resort, we saw a massive wave approaching, and its height was halfway up the height of the blocks of flats. My brother-in-law immediately turned off the main road into a side road because he wanted to go and look at the wave from another angle. But I said to him in the dream, don't do it, it's not safe. When I woke up from this dream, the Lord said to me, now you have seen the first wave. On the 5th of February 2023, I watched the prophecy given by Rebecca Erlang about the tsunami in the Western Cape. I did give you that link in the transcript of part 1 of the Water Chronicles. It was the first time I had watched this prophecy, And at this time, the Lord began to release me to share what He has shown me about this event. And I asked Him some clarifying questions. I said, Lord, how much time do we have left? And He said, you have 1 year. Now this is interesting because I watched another interview with John Moore given last year in 2021, and Mike Adams asked him the same question, how much time do we have left? And he said that those in the know at that time said that we had 2 years. Now it's 2023, and the Lord is saying to me 1 year. So those 2 time periods given are confirmations that in 2024 at some time, this whole sequence of events of the different waves will begin to roll out. Then I asked the Lord another question. Will it be before or after the 3 days of darkness? And He said, it will be after the destruction by water of the California coastline. Now bear in mind, I'm asking Him about the events unfolding in South Africa. And so He's telling me that when the California coastline is destroyed by water, the flooding in South Africa will occur after that. And then I asked Him, what is the time gap between the first and the second wave I dreamed of? And He said, weeks. Weeks. He didn't say how many weeks. Weeks could be 5 weeks. Weeks could be 7 weeks. He just said weeks. In other words, a short time. I thought when He said that of the barrier wall that was erected last year along the Strand beachfront to hold back the spring tides and protect the shops along the beachfront. And as I pictured this barrier wall in my mind, the Spirit said to me, that bulkhead will hold back nothing. A month later, I had another dream on the 6th of March, 2023. I dreamt I was on the west coast with my family. It was not clear from the landmarks which nation we were in, but I do live on the west coast of the Western Cape. I knew we all had to leave, and I shared this with my family. We discussed it and debated when would be a good time to go. And that night we all had the same dream, in which we were warned to flee east to Zoar, because judgment was coming. We knew we had to go immediately in the dream. It was quite a treacherous journey, and we ended up at a small town where we were told we had to stand in a queue for registration. Now this dream's reference to Zoar refers to when God sent angelic messengers to thrust Lot and his wife and daughters out of Sodom in the morning watch before judgment fell on Sodom during the day. And Zoar was the little town that Lot fled to. In other words, this dream is indicating that when we all have the same dream in a group of people, whether it's natural family or brothers and sisters in the Lord who fellowship closely together, the time of fleeing is urgent. The messengers that went to Lot thrust him out. They urged him all through the night to leave before judgment fell. And in the morning watch, which is the time when the sun was rising, they thrust him out. And the angel's instruction to the family was clear in Genesis 19:17. When they had brought them forth, they said, "Escape for your life. Do not look behind you or stop anywhere in the whole valley. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. Beloved, the Lord warns his people of judgments to come because he does not want them to perish. Please take these things I have shared to prayer and speedily obey anything the Spirit instructs you to do. Many coastal cities worldwide will be destroyed as the Lord's judgments unfold. Remember that people mocked Noah when he preached of the need for repentance, and they ridiculed the ark he was building. But in the end, as they were washed away, they knew he had heard correctly from the Lord. Do not expect others to embrace this message, as it disrupts all status quo and comfort for them to heed it. But the Spirit will confirm to those who fear the Lord exactly what they need to do. And I want to end with Luke 21 from verse 34. Take heed to yourselves and be on your guard, lest your hearts be overburdened and weighed down with the giddiness and headache and nausea of self-indulgence, drunkenness, and worldly worries and cares pertaining to the business of this life, and lest that day come upon you suddenly like a trap. For it will come upon all who live upon the face of the entire earth. Keep awake then, and watch at all times, praying that you may have the full strength and ability and be counted worthy to escape all these things that will take place and to stand in the presence of the Son of Man. Amen.